Remember, you do not need permission, you don't need qualifications to start making art. Hello and welcome to this video. I'm talking about something that holds a lot of people back from picking up a pencil or paintbrush, the barriers to getting started with art. Whether it's drawing, sketching or painting, many of us feel stuck before we even begin. But those barriers, are they really as solid as they appear? Let's go through them and on the way try to break them down, or at least reduce them to a manageable scale. I'll start with the internal barriers, the things that we keep in our heads that get in the way. Then we'll consider the external, more practical things. First, let's talk about confidence. Many of us think, I can't draw or I'm not creative. But artistic ability is not something that you're just born with. It's something you can develop. Think about the many other things that you've learnt to do. It might be drive a car, ride a bike, learn to read and write, operate a computer, that kind of thing. At the beginning, maybe you thought that you couldn't do it. A lot of the art process involves a set of skills that you can build over time. If you can write your name, draw out simple shapes, if you can see well enough to get around, and above all, if you've got the desire to learn and desire to create, then you've got all the foundations that you need to get started with art. Now, it sounds easy enough for me to say this, but I really believe that pretty well anybody can learn to draw competently from what they see or what they can imagine, and they can create worthwhile and satisfying art. I've seen it happen. Later in the video, I'll mention a self-study resource, which I've found really useful for transforming your drawing skills. If you're just getting started, or perhaps you've started on your creative journey, but maybe you've reached a bit of a plateau, maybe you're feeling a bit stuck, then what are your expectations of yourself? We often set the bar too high, especially considering the stage that we're at or the circumstances we've had so far. And that's not to say that we shouldn't aspire to be the best, but we also need to be realistic. We often think if it's not perfect, it's not worth doing. But if you can remember back to how you felt as a child, or perhaps how you've seen children responding to and approaching art materials, being creative, they don't wait to create a masterpiece. They just get stuck in and enjoy it. What if you gave yourself permission just to play, to be messy, to enjoy the process of making marks or using colors or whatever materials you're using? What effect would that have? How would that feel? For your own enjoyment, not for others' approval, and not to try to make some kind of finished product. That brings us on to what can be something of an elephant in the room, something that's felt but not acknowledged. The worry about what other people might think, fear of others' opinions. I think there's a couple of questions worth asking yourself about this. First, are you making your art for your own or for somebody else's satisfaction? Have a think about that, especially when you're just starting out. Even if you want to sell your work and you will need somebody else to appreciate it, it's important that you're satisfied with it. Otherwise, you might find yourself questioning the point of it all. If you're producing art that you are inspired and motivated by, that's going to show through in the work. And some people will like it and others won't. Secondly, how important is it to you personally for your art to be validated or appreciated by somebody else? If that is important to you, it could be useful to examine why that is and whether it's acting as a block or as a stimulus to you making a start. Remember, you do not need permission, you don't need qualifications, and you don't need anybody else's approval to start making art. Every one of us has our own unique view and response to the world. It's okay if somebody else doesn't like your art. That's their issue, not yours. So art is for you first and foremost. Okay, so apart from thinking about these questions I've posed already, what else can you actually do about these internal barriers? I think the biggest thing that I would say, and certainly what I've found the most helpful, has been to consider joining a group. A supportive art group, an art class, an art society can really help to give you the confidence to try things out and to explore new media, new ways of approaching things. A supportive art group can really help to give you the confidence to try things out and to grow in your creativity. Just avoid groups that are overly competitive or that are too much of a sort of mutual appreciation society. You want to be constructively challenged, not just coddled. You'll probably find there's a wide range of skills and ability and experience, including people who are very much at the same stage as you. And that's helpful in feeling that you're not alone, in getting that moral support, and finding that many other people have the same aspirations and the same issues as you do. I'll talk about more advantages of joining a group in the next section. If you found anything valuable in this so far, it would be great if you'd give the video a thumbs up. That really helps to support the channel. If you want to support the channel a bit further, then there's a link in the description below. Now let's look at some of those external barriers, the practical issues. Time and energy are big ones. Between work, family, and whatever other commitments you've got, it can feel impossible to find the time for art. But here's the thing, you don't need hours, and certainly not to get started. Even 15 minutes a day can make the difference in just getting started. Of course, later on, as things go on, you will start to need more time than that. But we're talking about taking the very first steps here. Now, like anything, it will need you to actually make that time and commit to it. And that's part of the investment that you're making in yourself and in your own creativity. It also requires you to make a decision to put aside other priorities for that time. Doing admin tasks, cleaning up, walking the dog, phoning friends. This can be a tough one for a lot of people. And it's something that all of us need to acknowledge and deal with ourselves. It's certainly something that I struggle with. In the earlier points, I urged you to be maybe a bit kinder on yourself, to have more realistic expectations. But in this point, I think you need to be quite tough on yourself to make it happen in the face of other demands. As I've said, I struggle with this myself. I have a very busy schedule with a full-time job and other stuff, and I do have to really work to make the time for art. So this is really important. Space and materials. Making art needs materials. You need a certain amount of space for that. But again, to get started, you don't really need a lot of space, and you don't need expensive so-called artist's quality materials to begin with. A sketchbook and a pencil, temporary working space on the kitchen table, or even sitting in a cafe, these are enough to get started. In fact, sometimes starting with cheaper, more limited materials can be a bit of an advantage. You can be less worried about whether you're actually wasting stuff. Being able to accept mistakes, things not working out, things being unsatisfactory, that's an important part of the process too. There are benefits to investing in so-called artist's quality materials. I'll maybe talk more about that in another video, another time. And there's also advantages in working on a larger scale, bigger pen, bigger canvas, bigger paper, whatever. But it's not necessary to begin with. Once you've got past the initial stages and you're into more regular art activity, then that's when you can decide which way you want to go and what you want to invest in. When you look around, are you not sure what to draw? Are you out of inspiration? That's a common thing, and we probably all face that, whatever our level of experience. What I would say there is start with what's in front of you, whether it's just a cup of coffee, a piece of fruit, a simple object. That can be a starting point. Looking more closely, maybe even just looking at the patterns and textures that you can see around you. The key is to start looking and observing. I would say that art is as much about seeing as it is about doing. The more you can fine-tune your observation, the more inspirations that you'll find around you, whether you prefer to work directly from life or whether you're more inspired by what's in your imagination. You can feed your imagination through observing carefully in the world as you go around. Looking at other people's work is also really useful. Again, I've got more things to say on this in another video. I like to save images that I find inspiring in a folder on my computer called Inspiring Artists. It's sort of like a digital scrapbook, but I've also kept real examples in a workbook and in scrapbooks. If I visit an exhibition, for example, I'll try and buy postcards of some of the works if I can't take a photograph of them. And when I'm just out and about generally, if I go past a gallery, I try to go in and just have a look at what's there. You never know what ideas and inspirations you can pick up. It's a good way to stir my creative fire if I'm feeling a bit subdued. So what else can you do about some of these external barriers? I've mentioned a couple of things already, but I'd come back to what I said at the end of the first section, and that is I strongly recommend joining a group or taking a course. There are many advantages of joining an art group or taking a course. It helps you to commit to and actually make the time for your art, even if the energy feels like a struggle. Though you may find it surprisingly invigorating once you're actually into the activity of the group. If you have to negotiate your priorities with other people or even just with yourself, having a formal commitment like a group session or a class, especially if you've had to pay for it yourself, can help you to have a stronger argument for going out to get that time for yourself. Then being in a different place, away from home, away from your everyday distractions or commitments, can really help you to focus on your art. If you're struggling with space or materials, then this can be a really good way to overcome that problem and get access to larger easels, larger surfaces to work on, maybe materials that you either can't afford or that would be problematic to use at home, whether it's things like oil paints with all their solvents or spray paints or that kind of thing. It's also a great situation to generate inspiration between each other. Those conversations at tea breaks and just the whole process of watching other people work around you can really help to spark off new ideas and different approaches. And don't be afraid to pick up ideas from other people, whether it's other artists or other students on a course, just generally whatever you see around you. Find inspiration in everything if you can. Being in an art group can also help to just widen your view of the possibilities and of different approaches to the same subject. So that interaction with other people can be very, very fruitful. And remember to be as generous back to others. Sharing these ideas and inspirations is really important. You'll never lose by doing that. If you're not on a course, but part of an art group, that can make it easier to get access to things like a tutor, to maybe run one or a series of workshops, or to bring an artist in to do a demonstration and maybe talk about their work and talk about their techniques. All of that stuff you can learn from. Of course, you can also all learn from each other. You can share ideas, tips, inspirations, and most of all, encouragement and support. I'm always struck by the variety and the freshness of ideas that I pick up and that I see around me when I go to workshops. I had this happen a few weeks ago when I went to a life drawing workshop, which I haven't done for a few years now due to a whole load of commitments. And it was really refreshing, really inspiring to see how other people tackled the same subject and the same time constraints. So it's always inspiring. There's always stuff to learn from other people and always stuff to share with other people too. Even if you prefer to work alone, it's still a useful thing to do to go along to an art group from time to time and be in that more communal atmosphere of shared activity, shared purpose. It's a very useful thing to do as part of your journey, in my experience. Now, if you can't get to an art group, or even if you can also do your own study. You can learn new methods, you can grow your practice that way, and grow your skills. Now, of course, we've got YouTube, which is a fantastic resource for many things. There's a whole load of channels that you can look at to pick up tips and skills and new approaches. That's something I hope to provide more as time goes on this channel. I did say earlier that I'd tell you about a useful resource that I had. It's a book that's been out for quite a long time now, but I've seen it really transform people's drawing skills and confidence in general, and I found it very useful for my own development. It's a book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards. I'll put a link in the description below. I'm not getting any kind of commission or sponsorship for this, by the way. I've just found it to be a very, very useful resource, and I'm keen to recommend it to other people. There's also another book I'm reading at the moment, which I'll link to in the description as well. In terms of space and materials, As I've said already, you don't need a full art studio. A corner of your kitchen table will do to start with. If you can find a space somewhere else that you can set aside a little more permanently as your own space, then so much the better. If you have the resources and maybe the time to do so, then it's worth making inquiries locally to see if there's any shared art spaces or studios that you could maybe get a place in. So here's a simple exercise to get you started. Right now in this video, grab a pencil or a pen, any piece of paper or a small notebook, and a simple object, something like a coffee cup, a piece of fruit, a small toy, that kind of thing. Put it in front of you, give yourself a maximum of 5 minutes, and make a quick drawing. Just do the best you can right now. Do not judge it. It doesn't have to be perfect. The point is, it just has to exist. When you've finished, write the date on it. Fold it up, put it away somewhere safe. It's not for other people to look at, it's for you. This gives you a baseline to work from. Remember, art is not about being perfect. It's about expressing yourself, capturing something of your visual and imaginative experiences, and having fun. So grab that pencil, make your mark, see where it takes you. Let me know in the comments how you get on. To see more about sketchbooks and sketching and how it can help, watch this video next. Or if you want to get more encouragement from other artists' experiences, watch one of the interviews with local artists that I'm also posting on this channel.